And we are in the midst of a deep discourse here, a deep mimer, talking about faith. Where does our faith come from? In other words, assuming, of course, one can develop faith, one can learn faith, one can study faith, but we're talking about the natural faith of a Jewish soul, of a Jewish person. Where does that come from? Now, there's a little bit of I just would like to bring up, in case maybe somebody would ask the question as well. I'm going to mute everyone. The participants there. Okay. And feel free to unmute at any point when you'd like to ask a question, and remute afterwards. It's just helpful in case there's outside noise.
We're on page 4, question 4. Where are we?
Let me pull this up. We are on page 5.
Okay, thank you.
And it starts part 5. We're going to, we just started part 5. And the Rebbe actually is addressing a question. Well, and we'll see how much we're going to go into answering the technicality of the question, but I think more I'd like for us to focus on kind of the takeaway of what the Rebbe answers. You'll see what I mean soon. But before we get there, so there's a certain premise that we're working with here. There's a given. The given is, well, I'm going to share the screen so we can all see it. The given is in the second, and actually before A and B, right at the first paragraph of part 5. The interrelation of these concepts can be resolved based on 2 different explanations. Again, like I said, I'm not going to be working so much on the resolution, but more on the 2 different explanations of the uniqueness of a Jew's belief in God. And what is the belief that we're going to be focusing on here? That they believe with simple faith and do not require any proof. So this is somewhat of a Hasidic axiom. And as axioms go, they are axiomatic, meaning that they might not, there might not quite be a proof for it. There are indications for it. And the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya goes and explains that, you know, you can find Jewish people who are not very learned or not very committed, who are willing to give up their life for God because they're Jewish. Where does that come from? If somebody is learned, I mean, take the Akedah, take Avraham Avinu, Yitzchok Avinu. Avraham was commanded to take his son, and Yitzchok was, once he found out what was really happening, he also went totally willingly. So Avraham and Yitzchok are very high-level souls. As described in the Zohar, they are called a Merkava, that they are a vehicle. They are a vehicle for the divine will. Whatever God wants, that's what we're going to do. So we can understand that they were willing to go through with that. But let's say an ordinary Jew, or perhaps less than ordinary, somebody who doesn't commit to Judaism so much really, how is such a person willing to give up their life? As thousands and millions of such Jews had given up their life in Jewish history. Doesn't make any sense. The Alter Rebbe makes some sense of it by explaining that every Jew has this neshama, this soul, and I'm not going to go so much into the explanation of the Alter Rebbe because it's not exactly what the Rebbe is explaining here, but it's along the same lines. And what I'm focusing on here is the axiom. The axiom is that a Jewish person doesn't need proof. A Jewish person believes. And as we quoted from the Talmud actually states that Jewish people are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We are believers, the children of believers. You know, it's and in our modern day of sophistication, I will admit, sometimes this is hard to see because we are exposed to so much information and so much intellectualism and so much that maybe throws our beliefs into somewhat of a conundrum or a quagmire. It's, would you say, let's take your average Jewish person in the United States of America, would you say that your average Jew just has simple belief in God without any proof? Any answers? Any?
I think there is, and we have examples during the Shoah, and we have examples from the newspaperman that went to, I think it was not India.
Daniel Pearl.
Daniel Pearl.
Pakistan.
He was a non-believer, but when they were going to cut his head off, he said the Shema.
Okay. So we have examples, right? There's no question that we have examples. And the identity, Jewish identity, in a certain way, I mean, if we were talking, if what the Rebbe was saying, that a Jewish person retains his Jewish identity no matter what, I wouldn't have so much of a question. Although in today's day and age, at least on the left coast over here, even that is unfortunately questionable, debatable. But the idea of Jewish identity for sure. But here he's talking specifically about belief in God. What's the line that he says here? He says that they believe with simple faith and do not require any proof. You guys don't have any problem with that. That's good. That's fine. If you don't, I'm just going to go further.
The way you express the question suggests to me that in America today, in the secular environment, exceedingly secular environment, I think a lot of that unquestionable faith has been eroded, just if no other reason that the constant messages that come through the media to that effect.
Sure. And this has been the direction since the advent of the late 1800s and science and Darwin, and so it's really had an effect. And this is not just Jews in America, this is Jews in Europe as well. You will find, I think, and I might be stereotyping and generalizing, but in a good way, I think by Sephardic Jews of Sephardic origin, you'll find this much more. They were not subject to the same levels of secularism as we have been, and you'll find that they have a much more natural belief. Anyway, I was discussing this with another group last week, and so I was questioning the premise, which you're not supposed to do, right? So does a Jew just naturally believe in God? I don't know. I know a lot of Jews that are agnostics, and I even know one of my neighbors is a very Orthodox atheist. He is so Orthodox that he came to me one day and he said, Rabbi, he said, your congregants come to me and they wish me a good Shabbos. They come to me when it's Rosh Hashanah and they wish me, Shana Tova. Don't they know that I'm an atheist? Why are they doing that? Are they just trying to irritate me? Are they, they should show more respect? I said, Jerry, they all know that you're an atheist, but they didn't realize that you're a frum atheist. So he was like an Orthodox, like an ultra-Orthodox atheist, right? He is still my neighbor. He laughed at that. He got it. So I think the best answer to this question will be that Hashem will bring Mashiach and show that, in fact, even such a Jew honestly, truly believes. Just a lot of other things get in the way. But it's so I'm not gonna go into it. It doesn't bother anybody else. It bothered me a little bit, so that's why I'm bringing it up. And if it doesn't bother anybody else, we're gonna go forward now, and with this premise. Okay, very good. So we have this idea that they believe with simple faith and do not require any proof. So why is that? Where does that come from? So to borrow an expression, we're continuing on with A here. To borrow an expression from the Talmud, his mazel perceives. That is, the soul as it exists in the spiritual realm sees godliness. Indeed, the soul's perception transcends the power of thought. So it sees godliness. In other words, at the level of a higher level, shall we say, the spiritual subconscious of the Jew perceives godliness. And this is a higher level of the soul. And since the higher level of the soul perceives, this in turn affects the soul that is enclosed within the body, imbuing it with faith. We could understand this by way of analogy with the idea of the subconscious mind. I think that when Chassidus talks about these different levels of the soul, when Chassidus talks about these different levels of the soul, we're really talking about a spiritual subconscious. And I think subconscious is very useful because, people don't realize it, but, when you talk about the power of, when you see the conscious mind, they use the analogy of the iceberg. When you see an iceberg, they say it's just the tip of the iceberg. Many people don't realize what that means. The tip of the iceberg is what we see. We see the tip of the iceberg and it's beautiful and it's glorious, but the iceberg there's far more beneath the surface. So I'm talking about subconscious, but I'm kind of using it to understand the idea of the deeper levels of the soul. In other words, if I told somebody before we understood about the subconscious mind, that there are different layers to your soul, deeper and deeper, but you don't understand, you don't think in those terms, but they're there. And you say, okay, it sounds like a nice fantasy. What's the idea of the subconscious mind? 90% of who we are, your beliefs, your emotions. By the way, not your, when you talk about beliefs here, I just want to say that there's different, when we talk about your beliefs, what do we mean by your beliefs here? We don't mean about your purported beliefs, right? A person can have things, I say I believe, but your beliefs of what you really truly believe. In other words, the beliefs that dictate how you make your decisions, how you act in life. So your beliefs, your emotions, your habits, your values, your protective reactions, your long-term memory, your imagination, your intuition, all of that is coming from the subconscious mind. What's coming from the conscious mind? I think I might crash here in a moment. Hopefully not. Oh, no, okay, we made it out. Okay, the conscious mind, you have willpower. Wow. Long-term memory also. Logical thinking, critical thinking. So all of our analysis and our logic, that's more in the conscious mind. But that's 10% of who we are. So I'm using that just simply as an analogy to understand that when we're talking about different layers of the neshama, this is a reality, this becomes a reality of who we are. How it manifests in us is going to be dependent upon each person. But we spoke last week that there are actually 5 different layers, 5 different levels of the neshama. We see them here in the picture. Here we have the person, and we have the lowest level is the nefesh, which is in the person that's more connected to your physical living. The ruach is connected to your emotional living. The neshama is connected to your power of knowing. Your chaya is connected to your will, and your, whoops, there's a mistake here on this. It should be, the highest level should be Yechida. There you go. Thank you. Yechida is the essence, more the essence of the soul. And these are all parts of who we are, although some of them are operating within us and some of them are operating outside of us. So here, this level of mazel is connected to the level of chaya, which is a level that's operating outside of us. What do we mean by outside of us? It's what Chassidus calls makif. It transcends. It's not something that your conscious mind can really absorb. And so it's operating above. It transcends. Sometimes, by way of example, you could listen to a speaker, and they're talking about all of these lofty ideas, and you're like so inspired. This is so amazing. Then you go home, and your wife says, "What did the rabbi talk about?" And you say, "It was amazing." So what did he say? It was mind-blowing. So what? Give me something, right? It was so inspiring. It was so touching. What did he say? I haven't a clue. I don't know. Sometimes you have something that is a transcendent, right? Or sometimes you could be at an event and feel something that's so touching and moving, but you can't really, it's beyond words. And that's something that's more transcendent. So for instance, a piece of Talmud, you study a piece of Talmud with Rabbi Smith, you have to know what the question is, you have to know what the answer is, you know who the Tana is, you know who the Amora is, you know what the Mishnah is, you know what the Brisa is, you have to keep track of all of these details. And if you don't know it, right, then you don't know the Gemara, you don't know the piece of Talmud. You have to know the details. And that's part of your more, towards the more conscious spiritual neshama, towards the neshama of your experience. But then you have the more, what's called the more transcendent, the makif, which is called the chaya level. So this first level that the Rebbe is talking about, your mazel perceives God openly, directly. It's a direct revelation of godliness. What effect does that have on the person below? So the person below, do we see it? No, but we believe it. Amazing how that works. And that's how the subconscious mind works also, right? Certain things, so you'll make certain decisions based on your belief in something. Why do you believe it? Because something going on in the subconscious mind that's moving you in ways you don't even realize. So this is a beautiful explanation of this premise. Again, we're trying to explain, again, not prove, but explain this premise that a Jewish person believes with simple faith and does not require any proof. Why is that so? So explanation number one, because his mazel sees. Mazel, again, is referring to the higher level of the neshama, the level that transcends the body. So is that clear? Any questions on that? And now we're going to come to really the core idea in the mimer. The second explanation is as follows. Faith is rooted in the essence of the soul, a level above that of what his mazel perceives. The essence of the soul is connected with godliness through an essential bond, a connection that does not depend on any external factors whatsoever, above even the quality of perception that transcends thought. Since this is true of the essence of the soul, even the soul as it exists within the body is connected with godliness by bonds of faith. Does anybody want to make a try at explaining this? What the Rebbe is explaining here? You can go ahead and read that paragraph again. It'd be very worthwhile. Anybody? Speak up.
I phrased it differently. I'm sorry.
Please phrase it differently. That's when you study something.
I go back to Chumash, basic Chumash.
It
Hashem Yisbarach.
sounds like Isaac.
Yes, it's me. Nishmas Chaim.
Okay.
The original Nishmas Chaim, Hashem blew into us, or into our great grandfather. And it's been passed down ever since. There has never been life created since Brias HaOlam. To have a life, you need to have a previous life. It's like lighting your Havdalah candle. You're supposed to use a candle that's already burning on Yom Tov. It's the same thing. You can't light a neshama. You can't light and have a life unless you have a previous life passing it down.
Previous light. Good.
Life. L-I-F-E.
Okay. All right.
The same bit of the neshama drips through. There's no such thing as a new or original life. It's all hand-me-downs. So even thinking about that and reflecting on that, at least for me, gives me a connection, or I try to feel a connection to that original Nishmas Chaim and where it came from.
By the way,
that's an essential bond.
I'll see you and I'll raise you one, because we actually say every morning about the neshama that is tahora. You have created it. You have formed it. What does va'ata nefachta bi mean?
You placed it in me.
No, you blew it into me.
You blew it into me. Sorry.
Right? Just like Adam, right? Vayipach ba'apav mishmas chayim that you're referring to. We say it every morning. Ata nefachta bi. You blew it into me. So I'm supporting your idea. I think.
And that's basically it. To me, that's the Pintele Yid. Now, the question is why a Yid as opposed to a non-Yid? You can get into different arguments there or whatever. I think on one level, we have a different neshama that was changed at Matan Torah. That was a significant change. And
You're answering a question that wasn't asked. So let me ask the question so everyone will be on the same page. If this was the neshama of Adam, this was the original soul into Adam, so then that every human being should have that. So now you're addressing it. You're answering that question.
On some level, we all do, but the question is, how do you cultivate it? The fact that it's there doesn't mean anything. I mean, it gives you a start, but you have to work on it and do something with it. So I think I was blessed that I had Erlicha parents. So I was sent to yeshiva and I went to shul, and they fought with my father every morning about making it to Minya. And where I may have drifted since, at least I was blessed with that initial attempt at developing it within me. At some point, whatever I did with it, but now I have the option of taking it back. And that's what I work on now. That's all.
Very good. Very good. So you said here, you said much, but let me focus on two words. You focused on a Pintele Yid. Translate Pintele Yid into English for us, please?
That little drop inside you that makes you a Jew.
The essential Jew, right? So basically, what the Rebbe is explaining here, and I'm going to go a little bit into the philosophy of it. Thank you for sharing that, Isaac. I appreciate it. I'm
Only because it was too quiet for too long. I'm going to sit here.
There you go. Zoom silence. Someone has got to talk.
I will.
Hello.
Hi. I just wanted to say that first
Please,
of all, yes.
if you don't mind, sorry, if you don't mind just stating your name so I know who's speaking.
Is that better?
Yeah, just state your name. Who is speaking?
Yehudis.
Yehudis. Ah, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I was saying about the Pinto Yid, I've been told as in every Jew, and some people, Pinto Yids just have to be dusted off, was the expression I was told. But also there are the two higher levels of the soul in the upper worlds, which infuse into the body, into the
Yehudis, hold on one second. I'm sure what you're saying is correct. I can't really hear it though.
Okay.
I'm not sure why maybe move closer to the microphone.
Get close to the mic, is that better?
It is.
Okay. One, the Pinto Yid, which is in every Jew, it was the breath of Hashem. And some Jews, it just has to be dusted off, which is, I think, Chabad worked. Mostly Hasidim tend to do that with their followers or people they meet in the street. They try to dust off that Pinto Yid. Also, there are the two higher levels in the soul, which are still connected with the soul in this world. So therefore, it seeps through. Also, I was going to say, what was I going to say? I was saying myself, I grew up in a completely assimilated family, connected to a reformed place of worship. And they just went there, I don't know, to wear, show off their mink coats. But at the age of 3, the age of 4, I was arguing with my mother, I can't do that, I'm Jewish, I won't do that. I will not celebrate that holiday. It's their holiday, it's not my holiday. I won't do it. And we're taught the whole Torah while we're in utero, so we're taught. And I think I just never forgot it. We're supposed to forget it when we're born, to be kissed by an angel, and supposed to forget what you were taught. I don't think I ever forgot it. I think I just always remembered it all my life. At the age of 3, age of 4, my parents about that I can't do this because I'm Jewish. And
amazing.
It was hard to grow up that way, but yeah. I made it.
Beautiful. So I want to, I'd like to go back to explaining these two different approaches of the Rebbe, and it's going to help us understand a lot about the Rebbe's approach. In order to understand this, I'm going to use an analogy to really get into understanding these two different themes that the Rebbe puts forth over here. He's putting forth one as the mazel and one as the essential. Okay, so that's the setup. That's the dichotomy. You have either the mazel or you have the essential. And both of them work, right? Each of them will work. But I'd like to help us understand this a little bit more, because right now we're just kind of throwing around terms. What do they really mean? So I'd like to share with you an analogy. So when you're talking about a parent, let's talk about a parent has a child. So the parent loves their child. Let's assume, that's a good assumption, that the parent loves their child. Why do they love their child? Because of how the child behaves? Because of how the child looks? Because of what the child knows? Because of their skills, their talents? Yes, no?
No.
No, it's instinct. No, it's instinct.
It's instinct. Right?
Yes.
It is. The parent loves their child because it's their child. And
right.
It's a natural, essential love.
Right.
Blood connection.
And what, if the child did what, would it sever that level of love?
I tried.
Nothing.
Nothing really. Now we know sometimes things are more complicated and sometimes you can have parents and children that are estranged, but from the parents' perspective, that love is never severed. They always feel their child in their heart. That is the essential love. Now let me talk about the job of a parent. What is the job of a parent?
To teach.
To teach their child, yes.
to develop to the best abilities all of their talents.
To-
But the most important is to raise them a human being in a society where they're supposed to be a good example and behave like a human. And I
right.
think that going back to your question, I was trying to kind of incorporate that. My name is Anna, so I'm sorry I did
Thank you,
not
Anna.
introduce myself. I believe that this initial spark that was given to every Jewish person, probably not Jews as well too, but we are focusing now on Jewish people, is the ability to bring God's will or light, as we call it, to the society. That's why for people who don't want to admit it or don't even want to use it to their abilities, they still have this possibility. It's something that is given to them. We are vehicles of bringing goodwill to the society. And I think that the name of chosen people comes not because we are chosen not to suffer, not to have any privileges, but we are chosen to bring this light because we are vehicles of doing it. That's
Chosenness is a responsibility.
right, right. And it's not even something that anyone is asking or anyone is appreciating. It's just given. It's like a car is a matter of transportation. I'm sorry to make such a silly example, but
of course.
but that's it. We're just simply, that's why I truly believe that as a nation, we survived through so many different problems and so many different wars and everything else, because we are the main vehicle to continue the God's will to bring all of the lights to the rest of the nations. And I think that as a parent, I heard a very interesting example, which I really would like to share with you. As a teacher, someone told us, imagine that you're a gardener. You have no idea what seeds are in your field, but your job is to water it. I think that that's kind of part of being Jewish, because regardless of what is planted.
And I'm kind of on a different discussion now about parenting, but that works very well for parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. Right? Yes.
So as parents, we're very much meant to irrigate.
Yes, yet you have no idea what are the plants that will grow, but right. Your job is to water and nurture that. The same as Jews with our mazel and with our neshama. That's my understanding.
So I'm going to just I'm going to bring an analogy here to get us back to the original point, and that is that so as a parent, your job is to raise your child. If you raise your child, are there going to be rules? By the way, one of the first jobs of a parent, you have to feed your child, keep them safe, right? These are all.
This is given. It's just
given, but there's still the job of parenting. So must there be boundaries, rules, consequences? Absolutely. That's all part of raising a mensch, raising a good person. You have a child with no boundaries. We've seen such children. It is not a good child, not a happy child, nor a mensch raise. So I want to give you an analogy. So a mother is taking her son. We'll call him Billy. Taking Billy to the mall, and Billy is 5 years old, and the mother says, "Billy, you have to hold my hand the whole time." Right? Safety first. Billy has an idea of his own, and as they're going, he sees something. He pulls away from his mother, sneaks away. She's doing something else. She's on her phone. You know how that happens. And he wanders off. She's looking for him, calling for him. Billy, looking here, looking there. Can't find him anywhere. Calls the mall security. They call the police. They're searching all over. Now she's frantic, looking for her son. So the mother who made the rule to hold the hand, I call that the manager parent, right? That's the job of parenting. You have to make rules and you have to try to keep the rules, right? You have to have consequences. So after an hour of looking, finally they find Billy. The mother sees Billy. What's the first thing the mother does? Does she punish him? Does she do,
Express the love, I think, first.
She hugs him.
love. She hugs him. She is so relieved, right? He's here, right? What's coming out here is the essential parent. The essential parent. In other words, in life, we have these two operation systems working in tandem. There is the essence of the neshama, but then there's the job of the neshama. So in terms of the job of the neshama, we have a function, we have a purpose, we have a job to do. We are meant to transform the world. And in order to do that, we have to be able to relate to the world. We have to be able to relate to God. And so on the level of the soul, on the soul levels, shall we say, all of these soul levels have to do with helping us that the higher level of the soul should reach the lowest level of the soul so that the soul should be able to perform its function in this world. And therefore, we have the Torah. We have 613 mitzvot. We have all of these rules in order to help us do our job. At the essential level, we are above and beyond all of that. The essential level of the connection is it's not about what we do, but it's about who we are. We are God's child. That's the essence, that's the essential level of the neshama. What the Rebbe is saying here, interestingly, the Rebbe in this discourse doesn't even refer to it as yechida, because even yechida is a certain level. But here we're talking about etzem haneshama, the very essence of the soul, the essential bond between God and the Jewish people. And even though that essential bond is not something that we're always privy to, we don't always feel it, we're not always living it. We might feel it on Yom Kippur. A Jew who's willing to give up his life feels it maybe then. Maybe Daniel Pearl felt it when he recited the Shema, right at the end of his life, and many Jews. And we can feel it every single day, and we could feel it every moment of the day. But nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact of who and what we are, you see. So on the level of mazel has a certain, it's lacking something. What is it lacking? It's not a level that we can necessarily relate to. It's a level that's beyond who we are. Now, the essential level, even though it's in a sense beyond who we are, but it is who we are. And this is what the Rebbe is about to explain here. Let's go further in the mimer. It is possible to explain the difference between these two causes of faith as follows. We're at the bottom of page 5. The faith experienced by the soul as it's enclosed in the body, which stems from the perception of the soul in the spiritual realm, that's talking about the first level, where the mazel sees, our spiritual subconscious sees. Since the soul as it exists in the spiritual realm is too elevated to be enclosed in the body, right? Why is that level not in our body? Because it's too high. The body can't internalize it. So that's what we mean, that it encompasses, encloses the body. So its effect on the soul as it's enclosed within the body cannot be internalized and can only serve as an encompassing light. We spoke earlier, if you recall, the idea of faith. There are two different types of faith. There's faith as in, I believe in God. And then there's faith that's internalized so that I make all of my decisions based on that. Right? We spoke about that earlier. So this first level of faith that a Jew has, the Rebbe is explaining, if you explain it only coming from the level of mazel, coming from this subconscious, the spiritual subconscious, the problem is that's a level that can't be internalized within our conscious mind. It has an effect on us. It has an impact on us. It can move us in certain ways, but it can't really be internalized. In contrast, the Rebbe explains the potential for faith to be internalized within the soul as it is enclosed in the body, stems from a revelation of the essential connection with God shared by the essence of the soul. Why is that? The essence seems to be a higher level, a more beyond level. If the level of mazel is beyond us, the level of the essence is surely beyond us. So the Rebbe says here, amazing words. For the essence of the soul is the essence of the soul as it is enclosed within the body. In other words, it is the truest definition of who we are. Since an entity will ultimately reflect the truth of its existence, that faith that stems from the essence of the soul can be internalized within the soul as it is enclosed within the body. So Rebbe says here a very novel point, an amazing point. Your essence, the essence, again, in this discussion of Chassidus, there's always the deeper and deeper and deeper self, and there's the more external, more superficial, relational self. What do I mean relational? Like when you're thinking in your mind, that's you relating to you. When you're speaking, that's you relating to someone else. But there's a deeper part of who you really are. That's not relational. It's just the essence of who you are. And seemingly that's more beyond us. But the Rebbe says, no, it's not beyond you. You know why? For the essence of the soul is the essence of the soul as it's enclosed within the body, meaning that is your truest definition. That's the truth of who you are. That's the truth of a neshama. That's the truth of a yid. Since an entity will ultimately reflect the truth of its existence. The faith that stems from the essence of the soul can be internalized within the soul as it is enclosed within the body. So the Rebbe says, since it's the essence, it's who you truly are, therefore it can be internalized. The Rebbe is saying we can access this level of essential faith in an internal way to actually have an impact on how we make our decisions, on having this truer, deeper faith. Are we getting this explanation of the Rebbe here? Any questions? Comments we'll wait on for a moment, but if there are any questions, we'll take them. Otherwise, we'll go forward. So now, based on the above, we can explain the connection between the concepts expounded in the previous Rebbe's Mimer, B'Kibel HaYehudim. So that the concept of crushed for the light comes as a continuation of the concept of a shepherd of faith. So the previous Rebbe talks about a shepherd of faith, that he actually helps to, he sustains us with faith. And part of that is the idea of being crushed. We spoke about last week, the idea of that crushed, being through the most difficult situations, that brings out the essential light. And the Rebbe explains the connection. For Moshe's endeavor to nurture and sustain the faith of the people, enabling it to be internalized, is possible because he reveals the essence of the soul. Again, for Moshe's endeavor to nurture and sustain the faith of the people, enabling it to be internalized, is possible because he reveals the essence of the soul. This level is above the mazel, which perceives. That is, it is the source of light, ma'or, which is above the light. So now we have the essence of the soul, the essential being. I won't even say perception, because perception is for a lower level. You know, you don't perceive yourself to be your parents' child. I perceive that I am the child of my parents. You don't perceive it, you know it, you live it. That's you, that's the fact of the matter, right? So this is a level of being that is beyond perception. This level is above mazel, which perceives. It is the source of light, it is the ma'or. So it is about the ma'or, not the light, which is an illumination, a reflection of a source, but rather it is the source itself. The expression crushed for the light, we're going back now to the verse. The original verse was that you shall bring olive oil. It should be crushed for the light, for the source of the light. right, for the luminary, indicates that the feeling of being crushed, experienced in exile, the feelings of being crushed are necessary to reach the light. We spoke about this last week. For the fundamental revelation of the essence of the soul is through Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is self-sacrifice, giving up our life for God, basically. That's the ultimate sacrifice, which is expressed primarily in the time of exile, as will be explained. The true essential Jew, how is the true essential Jew expressed? So far, we'll see there's going to be more to this, but so far it's expressed with Mesiras Nefesh. A Jew gives up his life, even though he didn't know so much about Judaism. He didn't maybe even accept it so much, but if somebody's telling me become a Christian or die, I'll take the latter. Why? Because this is who I am. To do otherwise is impossible. That is the expression of the essence of the soul. That is what it means to be crushed to get to the essence. And as we're soon going to see, that this is going to be connected with the leader of the generation, that it's the leader of the generation that promotes and inspires us and brings forth this deeper level of commitment of the Jew. We'll just do a little bit. Any questions or comments? We'll go a little bit further. So the Rebbe, there's some beautiful takeaways and beautiful ideas here. There's also a technical part of the discourse. So I want to just share with you. So we're saying so far, really, we're saying that there's two ways that we get this essential connection. Well, we have it. We have the essential connection. On the one hand, that's the idea of the shepherd of faith. And on the other hand, you're crushed to get to the essential light. So through our crushed situation, our situation of oppression in Galut and exile will also get us there. So which one is it exactly? The Rebbe is going to kind of lay it out for us, unfurl it. So to explain the above, the willingness of a Jew to sacrifice his life for his faith stems primarily from faith rooted in the essence of the soul. For the faith that stems from the level of a vision, of sight, the mazel perceives, does not motivate such a commitment. The faith inspired by this perception is very forceful, for the impression created by sight is very powerful. Nevertheless, since the faith comes from an external factor, the soul's perception, and is not connected with the essence of its being, does not necessitate Mesiras Nefesh. What the Rebbe is explaining here is the following. You convince me of something, some idea, and I'm going to maybe act on that idea. I'm going to achieve something. I'm going to know something. I'm going to share something. I'm going to, speak about something because you share this great idea with me. But am I willing to give up my life for that idea? The Rebbe says, not necessarily. You saw it, you had a perception, you perceived it, but not necessarily are you going to give up your life for that. Because you can decide to turn your head and say, you know what, I think I'll go perceive something else. Or ignore my perception. When it comes to the essential soul, which is, by the way, this is the essence of who we are to the exclusion of everything else. That's what he's about to say. Why will the Jew give up his life for his faith? Because faith in God is the very essence of his being, and therefore it is impossible that he will, heaven forbid, deny. So the idea of giving up one's life is because I can't be anything other than this is the truth of who I am. And to be alive as a Presbyterian is not going to be possible. To be alive acting like a Muslim or whatever is not going to be a possibility. It's simply not a possibility. Why? Because I am a Jew. And so the Rebbe is explaining here that the power of Mesiras Nefesh, which is the ultimate power of an expression of the essential Jew, the Etzem HaNeshama, stems from the second understanding of faith, that it's not because our mazel sees, but it's because this is who we are essentially. And based on the above, we can explain the statement in the Mimer of the previous Rebbe, that Moshe's function as the shepherd of faith, that he sustains and nurtures the faith of the Jews, applies also to the shepherds of Israel, the extension of Moshe in every generation. For they strengthen the faith of the Jewish people, inspiring them to self-sacrifice for the sake of the observance of the Torah and its mitzvahs. So basically the job of the Moshe of the generation, the extension of Moshe in every generation, is that they are there to foster that faith to the degree that the Jewish people are going to be willing to give up their life. Al Kiddush Hashem. There are many, many examples of this. Now, I don't even know that the leader of the generation necessarily has to be present in the situation of self-sacrifice. I think there could be something spiritual going on, but there are many examples given. Certainly the previous Rebbe at this point talking these words in Moscow, again, reminding you, the previous Rebbe is talking these words in Moscow in 1927. He was practicing what he was preaching. That was it, right? This was it. This was a situation that he was having self-sacrifice. In fact, there was a death decree upon him from the Soviet government because of these words that he spoke. So it wasn't just talking the talk. He was walking the walk. And I think there's a lot for us to absorb from that in our, in studying this mimer, to understand that these words weren't just, being spoken, they were being experienced. And this is the job. They strengthen this idea that we have to be willing to have self-sacrifice. There's also a beautiful story told with Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman Zatzal, who died al Kiddush Hashem. He was the Rosh Hashiva of Baranovich, big Lithuanian yeshiva. I think he was a student of the Chafetz Chaim, if I'm not mistaken, and of others. And he was discussing with his students that we are now going to. He was being killed by the Nazis, and he was discussing with the people there that we have to recite a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al kiddush Hashem. So he wasn't sure, or they were asking the question: are you supposed to say al kiddush Hashem or lekadesh shemo barabim? Is that some brachas are al, some are le. There's two different formats for the blessing. I don't remember which one he said. He came to a conclusion, but the point is to even, can you imagine discussing this technicality of Jewish law when the Nazis are about to kill you? But this is what it's all about. It's about Kiddush Hashem. In actuality, we have to be willing to die for this. A lot of people think if you die for it, then you don't exist. That's not true. If you're not willing to die for it, it won't continue existing. Only because people were willing to die for Judaism and died for Judaism, that's why we have it today. It's counterintuitive. It's an amazing thing. Every Jew who gave up his life because they were Jewish, that their spirit goes into the power of Judaism that we have today. People who aren't willing to die for it, well, it just evaporates. It was a nice idea whose time had not yet come. When somebody is willing to give up their life for it, then it has the power of continuance. But that's not the point of the mimer. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Anybody who would like to continue discussing, talking, commenting, asking is welcome to stay on. Otherwise, today's class is officially finished.
Yeah, Shukaya.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.